I sank into the battered armchair whose cushions sagged beneath me, my breath visible in the cold breeze rattling through the broken heater vent. On my laptop screen glowed the latest bank transfer, the memo line reading, family support, and the payee field showing my parents' joint account proof. I'd been underwriting their household out of my meager freelance earnings. Across town, Mom's new kitchen gleamed under carefully aimed LED strips. A cousin's Instagram story flashed by polished marble countertops, a smart panel glowing softly beneath the upper cabinets, and fresh herbs lined on floating shelves. The tagged location and the gleaming fixtures left no doubt they'd traded my monthly contributions for a renovation I never saw. My phone buzzed with a memory from the airline app, 2 unused boarding passes, each stamped canceled on my confirmation page. I had told friends I couldn't afford the getaway, but the real reason was scribbled in my calendar next to my parents' address. Pay electricity. Those digital boarding passes, with their bright red cancellation banner, were proof I chose their security over my longed-for escape. When I visited Dad, he greeted me under the soft glow of motion sensor lights installed above the doorway. He waved off my surprise at the fixtures, saying, "We managed just fine without asking you." His casual shrug, captured in the reflection of the polished floor tiles, was proof they believed my sacrifices were invisible. One afternoon, I wandered past our neighbor's cafe and spotted their back patio, now outfitted with teak loungers and plush cushions. I pulled out my phone to replay the cousin's tagged photo, its location pin and the barista's smiling face in the background, confirmed the new outdoor set belonged to Mom and Dad's weekend gatherings, financed by the very money I thought was shoring up their bills. My studio, by contrast, smelled of thrift store wood polish and stale coffee. A melting candle flickered beside a stack of overdue bill notices. The heating unit coughed every time I passed the thermostat, its grating metal proof that my own shelter had been sacrificed for theirs. When I finally asked Dad how the kitchen upgrade had been paid for, he leaned back in the squeaking chair and said, "We found another way." His voice slick with practiced ease. The way the light caught the new hardwood floors behind him, floors I hadn't contributed to, showed me he assumed my silence as agreement. That night, I made a folder on my desktop labeled Proof. Inside, I saved screenshots of each bank confirmation with my payee's name, the airline's cancellation screen, the Instagram snapshots of renovated spaces, and the soft glow of my broken heater vent. Each image bore its own timestamp, its own headerline, evidence that my 3 years of quiet giving had built someone else's comfort, while I shivered in a room I could barely afford to heat. In the hush of my studio, surrounded by tangible records of my own generosity, I realized I had become the invisible provider they assumed would never need recognition. The proof of my sacrifice lay in every document, every saved image, and in the faint ache of my own empty home. I landed and pulled the confirmation email from my pocket, the itinerary PDF still attached under the subject, "Home for Thanksgiving." I opened it in the airport lounge and scrolled to my mom's reply, a single thumbs-up emoji glowing against the white message bubble. That tiny yellow icon, frozen in my inbox, was proof I'd given fair warning, even if no one ever mentioned it again. Arriving at the house, I nudged open my old bedroom door to find strings of fairy lights draped around a sleek white desk piled with ring lights and camera lenses. A velvet chaise had replaced my twin bed, and a neon sign reading "Create Your Glow" flickered above a tripod. I ran my fingers over the sticky notes stuck to the wall. Madison's looping script, Content Hub. Its curl of adhesive still visible served as evidence that my sanctuary had been repurposed without a word. I drifted into what used to be the guest room and stumbled over a mound of holiday decorations. Shimmering garlands wound through pine cones, glittering ornaments, spilling from canvas sacks. A price tag on one festive pillow still dangled, and I snapped a photo, the date stamp blinking back at me, proof that someone else's cheer had taken residence in my corner of the house. Downstairs, the living room couch groaned under the weight of 3 small dogs, their chew toys scattered like confetti. When I asked my mother what happened to the sofa I once napped on, she leaned toward the kitchen doorway, voice low and tight. "There's a lovely Airbnb nearby. We'll cover half. You know how delicate Madison's state is." I caught the nervous catch in her breath as I replayed her words on my phone, proof she'd scripted my displacement into an expression of care. That night, I eased into the only empty seat at the table. The place setting where my nameplate should have rested was blank, except for a sprig of holly printed on cardstock. No letters, just decorative greenery. Madison sat at the head, her charger plate embossed with a gilded monogram. I watched her lean back, patting the small ring light beside her napkin, as my salad was placed down in silence. Proof I'd been downgraded from family member to afterthought. As the turkey was carved, relatives passed bottles of wine to one another before the empty glass at my left was finally filled. When I reached for the gravy boat, my hand brushed theirs first. No offer to pour, just a quick nod. I exchanged a glance with my father, who simply smiled and looked away. The pattern of attention, directed toward everyone but me, was proof of a carefully orchestrated exclusion. Lying in the guest bed later, I thumbed through photos on my phone. The fairy-lit desk under its neon glow, the holiday heap in the spare room, Mom's voicemail waveform, and the blank place card beside my untouched fork. Each image bore its own timestamp and visual cues, sticky notes peeling at the corners, price tags glinting in the lamp, light evidence that my Thanksgiving homecoming had been a grace note in someone else's plan, not a reunion. Madison burst into the kitchen waving her resignation email like a victory flag, breathless as she explained she'd quit the media agency because I need space to heal generational trauma. I remember the soft glow of her laptop screen as she played the first episode of The Fertile Void, her voice echoing through the speakers alongside the ambient music she'd layered under her monologue. I saved that MP3 file, proof she abandoned a steady paycheck for a podcast she believed would change the world. A weekend later, I pulled up in front of our childhood home and saw the used Subaru parked where Dad used to keep his old pickup. The leather seats were worn but clean, and a safety inspection sticker still clung to the windshield. I watched from the curb as Dad handed Madison the keys, the metal jingling in her hand. When I gently suggested she could help stock the fridge, she laughed and said, "My currency is energy," tossing her hair and strolling away. I snapped a photo of that empty fridge shelf, the faint outline where magnets once held my grocery lists. Proof she expected my bank balance to cover every need, while she traded chores for spiritual work. Each month, an email landed in my inbox with the subject line forwarded from Dad's address, rent payment confirmation. The landlord's portal showed Madison's apartment as paid in full, the rate matching the market price for that Boulder loft she loved. I kept those confirmation PDFs next to my own drafty rent reminders, their side-by-side appearance a clear record that her security came without her reaching into her own pocket. At every Sunday dinner, I watched Mom raise her glass to toast Madison's bravery for leaving the corporate grind, praising her vulnerability, as if it were a trophy. When I tried to celebrate my own freelance win, a glowing client testimonial, I saw her lips curl as she turned to Dad and whispered, "She's just too corporate." Their approving nods and soft laughter around the table left no doubt Madison's whims were honored while my hard work passed unnoticed. Last week, I wandered into the garage-turned-studio where incense smoke curled around crystals draped from the rafters. On a whiteboard, leaning against a stack of yoga bolsters, Madison had scrawled, "Resentments to release," in her curly script. Below, in my handwriting, sat the words "Puppet of Capitalism." I ran my finger over the faint smudge of marker, then snapped a picture proof she saw my career as a leash, not a source of pride. Standing there, surrounded by her smudged notes and scented candles, I realized our parents measured worth by softness and sensitivity, not by steady paychecks or the late nights I spent debugging code. The proof lay in every recorded file, every forwarded payment email, every empty shelf, and every whispered joke at dinner. In their eyes, Madison's tender whims outweighed my solid foundations, and that cold calculation had shaped my place in the family beyond any words they spoke. I spread the stack of bank statements across my kitchen counter. Marcus's email opened beside them. He circled the entry showing that my parents had quietly added me to a second mortgage. I held up the faxed appraisal form, my signature scrawled across the bottom exactly as I remembered signing off on that dorm lease. The appraisal's income field quoted my graduate stipend instead of my freelance earnings, proof they had lifted numbers from an old scholarship award to trick the bank. Next, I pulled up my credit report on screen, the soft hum of my laptop filling the apartment. 2 new accounts blinked back, high-limit cards I'd never applied for, both maxed out. When I clicked through to the transactions, One card's balance matched the transfer confirmation for a tropical retreat Madison raved about. I still had her excited Instagram story. Sun-drenched selfies, tagged with the clinic's name. That invoice, with its rainforest address and line item for holistic therapy package, showed exactly where my money ended up. I flipped to the medical expense log I'd been keeping, cross-referencing deposit dates with copay reminders. The clinic listed as mom specialist turned out to be a cosmetic surgery center, its header reading facial rejuvenation suite. The invoice listed upper eyelid correction under a visual strain relief code. I held the itemized bill up to the light, the facility's watermark, and the scribbled surgeon's note, visible proof I'd been funding her beauty upgrades, not her health. Finally, I found the life insurance policy buried in a folder labeled tax docs. The beneficiary form bore my name, as dependent. The insurance agent's stamp still crisp, a sticky note in my handwriting, reminded me that I'd never confirmed that change. Seeing my signature next to the tax credit checkbox, and the company's official seal beneath it, left no doubt that they'd claimed me on their return, without my knowledge. I laid out each document: appraisal, credit report pages, surgery invoice, policy form in neat rows, photographing them one by one. The appraisal's pasted income line, the credit report's mysterious card numbers, the cosmetic clinic's logo on the bill, and the insurer's stamp on the signed waiver, all appeared clearly in the photos. I saved them to a folder titled Proof, each file named for its source: mortgage forgery, tropical retreat charge, cosmetic bill, insurance fraud. In the gray light of my apartment, surrounded by evidence of their betrayal, I realized I'd been carrying their debts, their falsehoods, and their tax schemes on my credit and my conscience. The hard copies in my hand, and the digital snapshots on my screen, every altered line, every forged signature made it impossible to deny they had used my name as a blank check. This wasn't about kindness or family anymore. It was about stolen identity and hidden debts. And now I had the proof. I gathered the printed records and sat across from my parents in the familiar kitchen. Voice calm as I laid out the forged appraisal, the credit report showing the Costa Rica retreat charge, the surgery invoice labeled visual strain relief, and the life insurance form naming me as dependent. Dad's expression hardened as he tapped the appraisal with a stiff finger and said, "You only care about numbers. You don't understand emotional investment." His tone echoed the old lecture he'd given when I tried to discuss their spending with that same dismissive emphasis on my obsession. I finally realized, instead of shame over the forgery, before I could respond, Madison burst into the room, shoulders shaking as if she'd been rehearsing her entrance. She slammed the door behind her so hard the glass photograph frames rattled. "You're disrupting my trauma timeline," she shrieked, her voice cracking like a live microphone feedback. Later, I pulled up my recording of that moment, her scream ringing out clear against the muffled crash of her departure, a raw artifact proving she'd staged her outrage. Mom slid off her chair and clutched a tissue box, her fingers twisting a corner of the cardboard sleeve. As tears streaked her cheeks, she demanded, "Why are you doing this during the holidays?" That line replayed in my voicemail the next morning, her sobs still audible beneath the static. I found the used tissues crumpled beside the sink, their dampness, a silent testament to her performance. That night, I stepped into the living room to find Cousin Rita and our neighbors arranged around me in folding chairs. On the wall, a hand-lettered sign read "Family Healing Circle," its curling letters matching those on the scrap of scrapbook paper where I used to jot birthday wishes. I sat on the lone cushion in the center, as Rita leaned forward, voice soft, telling me how my wall of proof had turned me into the villain. When I pressed her for specifics, she sighed and quoted the family group chat, "We need to reach out with compassion, not accusations." I held up my phone, opened to the exact thread, her own words in black and white, only to be told the screen was flickering, my memory faulty. Throughout the circle, they spoke of my coldness, citing moments they claimed I'd refused hugs or ignored calls. Yet I produced my call log showing unanswered texts during their staged intervention. The green bubbles time-stamped before they'd even organized the gathering evidence. They'd rewritten history in real time to trap me in guilt. As my mother nodded gravely, two family friends joined hands and recited a prayer for my emotional blockage, their voices rising in unison. I held the prayer card they'd printed earlier, its clean margins betraying no smudges, proof they'd prepared the script in advance. Surrounded by their carefully choreographed compassion, I realized each outburst, each tear, each scripted circle of healing had been engineered to silence me. The documents I held, each bearing a distinct watermark, signature, or digital timestamp, were more than numbers. They were the truth they refused to face, the reality they twisted to crown themselves victims and consign me to guilt. In that charged silence, I understood they would cling to their performance, rather than acknowledge the evidence in my hands. My phone lit up with a message from Miss Lane, my former piano teacher. Her avatar, a grainy selfie of her at a recital, hovered beside the text. I heard rumors, sending love. Remember, music heals. I replayed her kind tone in my head, and scrolled back through old lesson recaps in our thread, score annotations she once sent, practice logs she praised. That outreach from someone who hadn't taught me in years felt out of the blue, proof that whispers had reached every corner of my past. That evening, my cousin James texted, "Got a call from Aunt Salma this afternoon. She said you've been cashing out crypto and blowing it on wild charges." His screenshot showed my aunt's message back to him. "She thinks she's some big whale now." And below it, my cousin's worried response. "Is that true?" 2 taps later, I saw my own bank alerts, no transfers to any exchange, since I sold off a minor position years ago. Those clean account records, side by side with her mocking text, made it clear she was spinning a story. A few days later, Instagram notified me that Madison had mentioned me in a story. I clicked through to find her standing among pine trees, tears tracking down her cheeks as she whispered, "It's always the strongest who leave scars." The clip cut to a flashlight beam flickering across rough bark, proof she'd filmed herself in exactly that grove near our childhood park. Her caption read, "Set family trauma," and comments from friends poured in, "Stay strong sis," and sending hugs. That reel's raw emotion, paired with the location tag, confirmed she wanted the world to see me as her tormentor. Then my inbox held an email titled "Thoughts" from my mother's address. Inside was a forwarded note she'd sent to my ex, asking, "Did you notice when my name started acting off?" Below, she'd pasted snippets of texts I'd sent in a moment of exhaustion, phrases like, "I can't do this anymore," taken wildly out of context. Seeing her signature at the bottom of the forwarded thread, and the timestamp showing it went out midday, while I was at work, proved she was actively recruiting my closest confidants. Late that night, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. A voice introduced himself as a reporter, saying an anonymous tip claimed I'd misappropriated client funds. He asked for comment, then offered to send the email headers of the tipster for verification. When I examined the header metadata, the originating IP address traced back to the same home network my father used for his weekly book club video calls. Checking my router logs that morning confirmed the match. That technical link, my logs pointing to his network, made it undeniable that he'd orchestrated the entire leak. I saved every screenshot and log. Miss Lane's caring DM beside my practice photos, my cousin's forwarded texts against my clean crypto statements, Madison's tagged location in the woods next to my police sketch of the grove, mom's email with threaded texts, and the IP lookup matching dad's network name. Those artifact screenshots stamped with familiar avatars. Bank alerts with my balance untouched. Video, timestamps synced to my park visits. Email headers bearing his server address formed a mosaic of betrayal, so concrete, it left no room for denial. In that stack of proof, I saw exactly how far they'd gone, turning love into whispers, safety into suspicion, and family into a campaign of shame. I sat in my lawyer's tidy office, watching her hand address the cease and desist to my parents with a steady hand. She slid across the desk a printed copy letterhead, crisp, signature inked in blue, and I traced the embossed seal with my fingertip. Proof that this time, I'd set firm boundaries, not soft hopes. She'd already filed my identity theft claim with the FTC. I still remember opening the confirmation email, the agent's name and case number stamped at the top, a tangible sign that I was no longer invisible. That afternoon, I headed to the post office and claimed my P.O. box. The clerk slid me a small brass key attached to a plastic tag, marked only Box 42. I tucked it into my wallet, thinking how once my real address was an open door, now letters could only reach me here. I texted my oldest friend from college, asking her to forward nothing else. and watched her blue checkmark appear. That single exchange was proof I was protecting my life, not surrendering it. Back at my apartment, I drafted the first post for my new Substack, Funding the Family That Ate Me. I described my wires for emergency rent, the unexpected dental bill I covered under holiday, surprise, and how those transactions haunted my bank statements. Comments arrived almost instantly. One subscriber shared a screenshot of her own redacted wire transfers to a sibling's failing business. Another message that she discovered forged co-signatures when refinancing her apartment. Each share, each heart reaction, became evidence that my story resonated, and that I was not alone. I began therapy in a sunlit room lined with eucalyptus plants. My counselor gave me a blank journal and encouraged me to write letters. I would never send to Dad about the forged appraisal, to Mom about the fake insurance premiums she charged to my name. I filled page after page with confessions and questions, the paper crinkling under my pen. Those pages, now stacked on my nightstand, stood as proof I was reclaiming my voice. Then came a message on Substack from someone I'd never met. Your words gave me permission to leave my own toxic family. Their reply included a photo of a handwritten note on their kitchen table. I did it, they'd scribbled, next to a canceled joint account card. That note, shared over pixels, became proof of my growing community and the impact of speaking my truth. One evening, a gentle text popped up, "I'd love to take you to dinner," from a reader who turned friend. Our first meeting at a quiet cafe ended with a walk by a lit fountain, where they confessed their own escape from a controlling sibling. We talked until the streetlights flickered off, and in their company I saw a mirror reflecting hope instead of shame. Months later, I found a heavy envelope waiting at the P.O. box. Inside lay a single check and a cramped note in my mother's handwriting. "We thought this might bring you back." I held the check beneath the laundry room light, its paper weight a testament to their last attempt at purchase. I framed both check and note in a simple black frame and hung it above my desk, proof not of reconciliation, but of the boundary I would never cross again.